paradox called the coastline paradox. It is the counterintuitive observation that the coastline of a landmass does not have a well-defined length. Since a landmass has features at all scales, from hundreds of kilometers in size to tiny fractions of a millimeter and below, the closer you look, the more wiggles you come across, and instead of converging on a more accurate length, the coastline just keeps getting longer. The smaller your ruler, the longer it gets, and hence no single well-defined perimeter can be calculated to the landmass. This phenomena is important if you are talking about measurement in any field. To be able to give decisions, an expert should learn the rules professionally. Then they may break them like an artist. Since UX is accepted as an art within the boundaries of science, measures in UX should be taken into account as only guidelines and not rules. They are made to be broken. As Pablo Picasso said, learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. To be able to break the rules of usability, one should know how usability testing handles the data it receives. As we saw in the previous unit, one of the main distinctions between methods was types of data. Qualitative versus quantitative. Qualitative data consists of observational findings, whereas quantitative data is in the form of one or more metrics. Qualitative studies try to find answers to the whys, while quantitative answers use numbers to be able to refer to how much or how many. Quantitative studies use summative evaluations that describe how well a design performs, unlike formative evaluations that focus on determining which aspects of the design work well or not, and why used usually in qualitative studies. Qualitative studies are conducted generally with about 5 users, and results are likely to uncover around 85% of the usability problems. Qual data usually consist of a set of findings based on the knowledge and level of experience. Quantitative studies, on the other hand, usually involve more than 30 participants and use the statistical significance of the results. Since both types of research are quite different, many companies have separate job requirements for quantitative and qualitative UX researchers. The type of data used in these studies do not show how to measure variability in user experience. Since good or bad usability will impact on the levels of experience, here are 10 metrics that may be used to operationalize usability factors. These boxes have definitions behind them. To read the definitions, please click on the boxes. And now, it's time for practice. Read the following statements about normalization and normal forms. Decide whether they are true or false. One of the main goals of user research is to evaluate the interaction between the player and the application to improve the player's experience. Surveys are one of the methodologies that can help achieve these goals. Surveys are based on quantitative measures, and the goal of a survey is to provide statistical estimates of the characteristics of the target population, which is not possible or feasible to study with all of them at once. They can accurately measure and reliably represent attitudes and perceptions of a population. Surveys can collect players' motives for playing a game at a specific time or in a specific situation. Surveys can be used to understand your player base and to better serve their needs. Researchers can collect players' demographic information, their genre savviness or overall expertise with the platform, and psychographic variables such as personality traits. Surveys can be used to compare players' attitudes, perceptions, and experiences. The art of asking questions depends its objectivity, reliability, and validity. A new survey can be prepared or one of the well-established questionnaires in user research to collect data about users. Surveys can be useful to collect data from population, but selecting the right questions is not an easy job. Standardized questionnaires or scales can be useful to measure satisfaction of users. System usability. Scale, SUS, is an industry standard for perceived user experience but will not be specific to what your app will be. Depending on what you are developing, there may be industry standard questionnaires that you can work off of. For example, in the context of game development, there are questionnaires that are developed for game research. Reading published research papers about these assessment and evaluation questionnaires or downloading them help developers, researchers, and instructors to evaluate apps in different contexts. Questionnaires are not the only tools to collect data from users. Physiological or biometric measures use signal recording or imaging technologies for doing real-time assessment of users when engaging in the app. Electroencephalography, EEG, is the sensing of brain activity through sensors placed on the scalp. This measurement and analysis of brain activity allows us retroactively to infer details of emotional or neurological state. While this can provide accurate details into when a user likes or dislikes something, it can also cause undue stress for the user. Electromyography, EMG, is the measurement of the electrical activation of muscle tissue. This body-based technique is most often used in evaluation to record stimuli to the facial muscles. Electrodermal activity, EDA, also known as galvanic skin response, is a common psychophysiological measurement whose application is relatively easy. EDA is regulated by sweat production in the eccrine glands, which in turn is associated with psychological stimulation. Cardiovascular metrics, including electrocardiography, EKG, which is the use of physiological sensors on the body to monitor heart activity. The EKG signal can be used to measure heart rate variability, HRV. Heart rate HR monitoring is cheap and accessible through the plethora of HR apps, smartwatches, and exercise monitoring equipment.